Conversations That Matter is a partner program for the Centre for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you.
Petra Kuret, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm interested in having this discussion with you about the path to leadership for women in complex organizations. And there's a part of me that I'm embarrassed to even be asking that question. Okay. I think, aren't we supposed to be beyond that? But clearly we're not. Tell me a little bit about the structure of your office, because you run Accenture's office here in Vancouver.
That's right.
What is the makeup of men and women in senior management roles within your firm?
Yeah, great question. And you are absolutely right. We are still having these discussions, and certainly there's lots of progress that's been made. And when you look at the numbers within our own organization, we have about 130,000 women globally. That's a third of our workforce. Mm-hmm. When you come down to Canada, we've got about 44% that are women. And then when you look at the leadership level, we're closer to 30%. So clearly there's more work to be done. When you come down to the Vancouver level and in British Columbia, I'm quite proud that of the 5 managing directors here in Vancouver, there are 4 that are women. And
so that's completely different than all the statistics that you just gave me,
yes,
nationally and internationally.
Correct, yep.
How come? What's going on here in Vancouver that others can maybe learn from?
Yep.
Without it being saying, okay, well, we're going to put you in that position because you're a woman. It's
right.
Rather you're the right candidate,
right,
and you qualify and you have nothing that's standing in your way from being able to obtain that
yep.
position.
So I think there's 2 aspects really that underlie that, Stu. One is around sort of the systemic and processes and programs that our organization invests in heavily, and then the other piece is really the culture, which breeds and really expects of all of us as leaders to take personal accountability for the inclusion diversity agenda. And so I, as a leader here in the Vancouver office, have really worked as candidates and senior managers are coming up through the ranks to make sure that I've taken accountability to support them, to sponsor them, to mentor them, and to actively get engaged in the process that we have internally to take our women to those senior levels in the organization. So it really comes back to sort of this 2-pronged approach of all of the amazing development programs and processes that we have in place, whether that's our leadership development program, whether that's elevating your performance, women, high-performing women, as well as that personal accountability, both that men and women need to take in supporting women through those different advancement opportunities. Because at the end of the day, we're a people-based business, and we really need to make sure that we're fostering the right talent to be able to be smarter, stronger, and more innovative for our clients, for our own people, and in our communities.
So we know that if we go and take a look at university programs right now, that the mix of men and women, young men and women, actually, especially in graduate programs, women are, like, there's more of them in the seats in the classroom
That's
than
right.
there are guys. Like
yep.
the scales have tipped to the point where it's like 55, 45, and maybe an even wider gap than that,
yep.
and growing. So we see that young women are saying, yes, I want that professional career development. I'm doing all the necessary steps at the beginning of my career, and out into the workplace I go.
That's right.
My understanding also is that if you look in the workplace, in anything from middle management down, there's largely parity as far as the number of members of each sex
yes.
that are represented.
Right, right.
But something happens in going from there to senior management.
Yep.
What are some of those obstacles that
yep.
women face?
Yep. Great question, and this issue of gender parity is one that we as an organization are taking really to heart. And so in Canada specifically, we've set a goal that by 2020 there'll be gender parity at the manager and up level.
That's only 4 years from now.
That is only 4 years. So again, you need stretch goals, and you need to hold people accountable. So one is setting the goal. The second piece is really, what are the insights that we have? And so it was last year that we launched a diversity census So self-reporting, which again, in our country, we don't report on those stats. In the US, they do. But it gave us a fascinating view of really the demographic that we have in our organization. And you say, okay, so what? That's interesting. What do you do with that? Well, you focus your investment. And it's exactly what you said. What is it at that mid-manager level that causes women to choose to exit the organization? And so,
or maybe not strive for that that next rung up the ladder.
That's right, absolutely. No. And I think I have a personal bias where success is defined differently by all of us. And so in an organization such as ours, where there's so many different types of services and businesses that we're in, that it really allows women now more than ever to not be on this consulting track where it's an up or out, where there's the opportunity to redefine your career maybe at that mid-level point. And if I think back to the Global Leadership Program that I was in, which is a year-long, takes sort of the best and brightest that are looking to make it to managing director. Our business problem for the year was how do you increase inclusion diversity. So it's something that we spent a lot of time really teasing out. And there was some pushback from leadership to say, well, why don't we just have positive discrimination to deal with this issue? And so,
what do you mean by positive discrimination?
Where you set very clear targets and you move women into those roles. And
that can be a little bit dangerous.
Absolutely.
It's almost like affirmative action.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we decided that was a provocative statement, but we really needed to look at it from a different angle. It was really about leveling the playing field. And what do I mean by that? It's giving individuals, women, the opportunity to put them into roles that might stretch them beyond their comfort zone and supporting them to develop that next level of skill set and leadership. And so does that give us the opportunity not to put everyone on a level playing field? Absolutely. Does that require that senior leaders know us as women, what we're capable of and potentially stretching us? Absolutely. And so there's programs put in place where you're directly mentored by someone on the leadership team to put you into those roles. I remember getting the call from Bill Morris, who leads Canada, and he said, we've got some challenges at a client. We really need the right person in the role, and they need someone that has deep retail expertise, can deal with complex IT organizations, and they need to be based in Vancouver because the others have been from Toronto or down in the US. And I said, well, Bill, I'm based in Vancouver, but I don't even really like to shop. I'm certainly not a retail expert. Right. And I also, I'm around IT, but I'm certainly not an IT professional. And he said, Petra, you can do this. You have the raw talent. You're great at client relationship. You're a fantastic problem solver. Just believe in yourself that you can do that. And so that was an absolute stretch role that put me into an area that I hadn't explored before. But I went to India. My team was 500 strong. It was based all over the world. I learned so much about our business, but it took someone believing in me for me to believe in myself.
I'm just got to get you to hang on for a second while we take a quick commercial break.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
Okay, so that touches on a point that I was just going to bring up, which is we know that a lot of men will say, oh yeah, I can do that, even though they may not have the direct relevant experience.
Yep.
They're willing to put themselves out there.
That's
Whereas we hear this anecdotally. I don't know exactly what the statistics are, but you hear it enough times and you start to believe, okay, do women self-limit because they don't put themselves out there saying, well, I'm not perfect for the position, so therefore I'm not going to apply.
Yep.
And then therefore you do need a mentor like that.
Yes, absolutely. I think the other thing that's really important in this fast-paced world that we're living in, the disruption, whether that's in technology, the changes in industry, the difference between the potential we see in ourselves as women versus the proven capability. We need to almost, as leaders in organizations, shift from this belief that we need to have the demonstrated capability to one where do we have the potential and the characteristics and the traits in this world that is so rapidly changing, that the adaptability, the resilience, the ability to collaborate, those are skills that are core to women.
And the willingness to take on the responsibility that comes with all of that.
Absolutely. And so that requires that you have a culture that supports women as they take on those challenging roles. I would say, again, if I look back on what we found that was most profound for women that left at that mid-level, it was that they didn't have the right role models, or they didn't have role models that they saw themselves in. And so there's a program that we had around Adopt a Project. And in a consulting environment, you might only have access to one leader that's leading the project. So there was budget on a quarterly basis set aside to bring a senior woman in, again, as a role model, to talk about her story, and not just her Accenture story, but her whole story. So what does life outside of the workplace look like? And so it was fabulous for me. At the time, I was a senior manager. I hadn't had my first child yet. And so to have one woman tell her story of both her husband and her were in power careers. They had a day nanny and a night nanny. That was one model. There was someone else that came and her husband stayed at home and raised the children. There was someone else. She was gay, she didn't have children, she had a different story to be able to tell. And so it was an incredibly powerful experience over that year to see the different ways that people had put their own personal values into the way they had structured their work life. And so that gave our women a way to contextualize how they might be able to make it work at a senior level within Accenture.
Okay, so you're in a very senior position here with this firm, and you talk about relationships, your life outside of work. How important is the relationship with your partner? I guess the father of your children, in allowing you to be able to do the work that you need to, that it makes you accountable and responsible to your position. It's a team.
It's you couldn't be more right. It is absolutely a team, and any team goes through a roller coaster. And I wouldn't be honest with you, Stu, if I didn't say that was it has been a roller coaster ride. But at the end of the day, John and I I hate to joke about this, but said we didn't want to outsource our children. And so we made a very conscious decision where my career was and where his was, that he would stay home. Now, then you bring in some of the discussions that happen back home. He's from a strong Italian family, and so it took some while for Dad to wrap his head around his son staying home. But you know what? He is an amazing parent. He probably is just so focused on the kids in those early years before they started kindergarten, that it was the right decision for not just us as individuals and my career, but also for the children. And they will forever, and I am forever grateful that they had the gift of having a father figure at home, and really taking ownership of everything that goes on at home. But it is absolutely a team effort.
This is our second break.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
We're in essence rewriting the family contract. So for so long in our society, it's been the guy goes to work, mom stays home, looks after the kids, looks after the house. But that was a team effort, but so often it was unspoken. Maybe one of the great things out of this is that you actually have discussions at home that say, these are the decisions that we're going to make and why. Right. And that must be psychologically freeing once you've been able to do that. Then it gives you the freedom to pursue, the absolute upper reaches of your potential.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the other thing that's unique and sort of the perspective that I've taken, it's not about, for me, work-life balance. For me, it's about work-life integration. And I have tried to find opportunities where, for instance, Gabriel, he was 12 at the time, came to work with me and was on a panel around a discussion around how do you have an impact in your community. And he rose to the occasion. Now that's a blurring of the lines of work-life, but it's incredibly healthy for him to see how mom operates both in the home and outside the home.
So there's a woman, Susan Colantuno is her name. She's written a book called No Ceilings, No Walls, because she basically contends we're in an environment in North America where access to opportunity is there if you're willing to take it. She said, but one of the things that holds women back, and a lot of men as well, is that to move beyond being in middle management to senior management, you have to go from knowing how to do the work to understanding the business of your business. It's how do you make money? What are your threats? What are your strategic advantages? How do you think in a way that says, I'm now thinking about the business? And you know, to get there, so often you need the right kind of support. And are women a little bit more reluctant to ask for and seek out that kind of direction?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Stu. I think the advice I often give to women is that it comes down to, I call them the 4 C's. Curiosity, conviction, collaboration, and coaching. And the first 2 really are the ones that are central around being curious. And I think women don't draw on this enough, of asking the what if questions. And then in that, you often arrive at a place where innovation is at the end of that curiosity. And I often say it's not about big I innovation, the transformative change, or understanding the business as a whole. It's about small I innovation. And so understanding the business that you might have in your own backyard, in your own office, in your own region. So really bringing it down to a level and being curious about, in the question that you asked, the business, let's say in Canada. The second one, the second piece of advice around compelling really is one that's grounded in, do you have a point of view that you're passionate about? Do you have the conviction to put yourself out there? What is the brand that you're known for, right? And have you created that brand that people think of you in that light? And that takes a level of confidence, certainly, but also that conviction to actually put those thoughts out there.
It's such a fascinating topic. It's not just about women, it's about all of us. We'll be back in a moment to finish off this discussion. We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
It brings with it a little bit of risk too.
Absolutely.
And we'll get to the other 2 C's in a moment, but you know, I can't help but think that you know, if you're risk adverse at all, and you know, we've been raised collectively where women are a little bit more cautious, and so you know, you have to put yourself out there and take some chances.
So I fully agree with you. I often say it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And really at the end of the day, what does that come down to? It comes down to the culture that's around you. And we're a people-based business. We don't manufacture a product, a widget. And so as such, it's our core values really around respect for the individual, around integrity, that almost to a person in any geography that I've worked in, that's what is the glue within Accenture that gives a lot of women and all of really the ERG groups the opportunity to rise to that occasion, because without that support and the belief and stewardship of those core values, you're right, risk and the self-speak starts to get the better of us. But surrounding yourself with mentors, both inside Accenture and outside, the ones that are there to boost you up, as well as the ones that are willing to hold up the mirror and say, Petra, are you overreacting? Are you doubting yourself too much?
That's the coaching component.
That's the coaching component, bang on. That we really need to strive as women to find that circle of mentorship and the different roles that people can play that will push us and allow us to be successful at the end of the day in those stretch roles.
So within your organizations, particularly here in Vancouver, of course, we're seeing that this is playing itself out and that you're getting appropriate representation between the sexes.
Yeah.
And I imagine that by extension then goes into all other kinds of diversity as well.
Yes.
And so why is it important now, especially in the 21st century, that we embrace that kind of diversity? What does it bring to the offering that a company has when you have such a diverse workforce that it's contributing towards the services and products that you're generating?
Right. It all comes back to being a stronger, smarter, and more innovative organization, both for our people, for our clients, and our community. And it's really fostering and pulling people into that conversation, that dialogue, that sharing of ideas that really brings the best out in terms of serving our clients, because we provide a service, and it's that diversity of ideas, the different way of thinking that all of those groups that you described bring to the table. And again, we don't even know what's out there in the future. This isn't as linear as it was, 100, 150 years ago, because the pace of change is so different. And so that ability to collaborate, to be creative, that diversity of thought, that's what an inclusive and diverse workforce really allows us to achieve.
Because you want to create an environment where everybody has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that full potential is about knowing yourself. And so we've made this big shift internally from performance management to performance achievement around your individual achievement and what success and aspiration looks like for you. And there's a strength assessment that now all 400,000 employees have gone through. It really gives you what are the top 5 strengths that I as an individual have. And you could ask, well, what's the so what of that? Well, I now know what's important to Stu. If I'm in a conversation with you, tell me what your top 5 strengths are. What does that allow me to do as a leader? It allows me to help you find a role where you're continuously learning, or maybe there's something around influence that is one of your top strengths. So how do we maybe find a sales role where you're influencing? And so typically there hasn't been a way to sort of codify what it is. I call it, what's the fire in the belly that you have?
That comes down to culture.
Yes.
Because without it, those elements aren't going to come together. I'm thinking about Aristotle, paraphrasing him in the sense that he said that, when an individual doesn't reach their full potential, something is lost to the whole, to all of us. And it sounds to me like you and your team are there to encourage one another to do just that, to reach their full potential. Thank you for coming in and doing this.
Thank you very much.